everyone. Today's video is a bit different than what I usually share here. It's a Q&A session that was done in my Facebook group with over 13,000 people in it who are working on their recovery from ME/CFS, long COVID, and similar conditions. And what makes this group unique is that it is recovery focused, which ironically is not always the case in these online spaces. So everyone in this group believes in recovery, knows that it is possible. It is a safe space to connect and get support. There is no venting allowed or gaslighting. It is a protected space for you to come and hopefully feel a little bit better after having spent some time there. It's also a space structured to help you find your next steps on your recovery journey. So we make available for group members various program creators and coaches that you can learn from and see if they might be a good fit for you. And this video right now is one such example of this. It's hosted by Miguel Bautista. He is the founder of CFS Recovery. And in this video, he shares his incredible recovery from CFS, including experiencing severe CFS symptoms that left him bedridden for months and even hospitalized for 2 months at his worst. He had to learn how to use a wheelchair and then a walker and then rebuild his life from the ground up, but since has thankfully regained his health and a very full life. He is the author of Thriver, Not Survivor, and has a popular YouTube channel covering all things related to recovery. This Q&A session with Miguel that you're going to get to see right now is packed with hope, but also practical advice and strategies that you can consider implementing right now if you think they might be a good fit for you. He covers lots of important topics, including the role of a hypersensitive nervous system and how it contributes to symptoms. He'll tell you what the golden rule of recovery is in his program, and I can tell you it is simple, powerful, and a game changer. And he'll discuss how to deal with things like food sensitivities and the fear of overdoing it and the power of something called progress cycles and strategies for overcoming the fear of pushing too much and too far, and just overall how to unlock your healing potential and avoid setbacks, plus so much more. So let's dive in.
Alrighty. I developed ME about 10 years ago and have had periods of good energy and a period of being semi-housebound after catching COVID 5 years ago. I feel like I can't recover past about 80% and I'm overwhelmed by the different recovery styles. First of all, you were semi-housebound and it sounds like you were more sick before. So the good news is you have built up your capacity to the point where you are about 80% or what you deem to be 80%. But it seems like you hit a recovery plateau. And usually there's a reason why. So if you're feeling like you're in the 80%, you're probably at that semi-functional state. You are probably able to go out, drive, go to grocery stores, clean the house, do house chores, probably see your friends a little bit. So you're semi-functional, but you're still feeling a lot of symptoms. So at this stage, I would try not to, this is what I would do personally, by the way, and everything I say on this live Q&A, just take it with a grain of salt. Always consult with a medical professional before implementing anything. That is my disclaimer for today. But at your level, if you say you're about 80%, I would focus more on the quality of the activities versus adding on more activities. So instead of going for quantity of activities, go for quality. Because even though you can still do stuff right now, you're probably symptomatic throughout, which is why you feel like you're at about 80%. I would actually really focus on the hobbies that you're doing right now. Do things that keep your mind busy, that allow you to not think too much about recovery. I was on several calls in the last week and I spent hours talking about how this can actually be a roadblock for some people. They may be too focused on recovery and not focused enough on life outside of recovery. Now, recovery, it can feel like a full-time job. It can be quite consuming for your energy and your focus. It's hard to get away from CFS when it's almost all you think about. Not saying that's you, but just from what I've seen with people and myself. So what's really going to help you get past this last little phase here is really diving deep into hobbies, deep into things you enjoy, and doing things that make you forget that you have CFS, right? And in the beginning, your attention and focus and energy has to be mainly focused on recovery. So recovery on one hand, right? This is recovery on this side. And then this is anything outside of recovery. Your focus is mainly on recovery and everything else takes the back seat. Now, over time, as you get better and better, you want that to change priorities. So less and less focus on recovery, and then more and more focus on doing things outside of CFS or without CFS in mind. And this is really how you reintegrate back into a normal life, right? It happens little by little. So that's what I would do at your stage, and also keep it simple. I know you said you feel overwhelmed by the different recovery styles. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. I would say find something that resonates with you and just stick to it, because a lot of different things work, but they don't work when you start mixing them together, because there's going to be some conflicting information, if that makes sense. But you could be working off principles from 3 different people. And if you were to just focus on those individual principles, they may work. But if you focus on all 3 of them and try to intertwine them, you're almost guaranteed for it to not work. Now, in some instances, if the concepts complement each other, then yes, I would say go for it. But if you're getting conflicting advice and it makes it even more confusing, that's a sign to just stay in 1 lane or 2 lanes, things that complement each other. So that's what I would do. You really only need 1 recovery style to work. And once you find something that works, you just stick to it and run with it. Not literally, but you stick to it until you get better. Recovery actually is actually quite simple. It's not easy, but it is actually very simple. Once you find something that's working, you just repeat that cycle over and over and over again. I talk a lot about progress cycles. Recovery happens in cycles, and there's dozens and dozens of cycles throughout recovery. So what is a cycle? A cycle is like you increasing activity or expanding, and then you flaring up a little bit, having symptoms, and then you pulling back, right? Very similar to how fitness or exercise cycles work. When you want to make the body get stronger physically, you have to exercise, put strain on the body, stimulate the body. Then after that, you're going to feel quite sore. And then you're going to take a rest day from the gym. So it actually works in 3 parts. You could say 2 or 3 parts. The first part is increasing activity or stimulus. It doesn't have to be physical. Remember, in CFS, it's not just the physical things that make you flare up in CFS and long COVID. You could be watching a movie and that can give you symptoms. You could have a disagreement with somebody and that can give you symptoms. So it's not all physical here. So keep that in mind with all of this, but to keep it simple for this analogy, think about it like the gym and trying to get stronger. You go exercise, you get sore, then you take a rest day. With CFS and long COVID, you increase your stimulus, you have a flare up. You're not sore, but you have a flare up. I mean, you could be sore, but you get a lot more symptoms than just being sore sometimes, as you would in the gym. And then after that, you pull back. Now, if you do that right, there is no exact right or wrong way to do it, but let's say you complete that cycle. I call it a progress cycle. You do that over and over again, because each cycle you level up, you get stronger, your nervous system gets a little bit more resilient, whether it's physically or mentally, you're able to watch TV for a little bit longer, or even emotionally, you're able to have longer and deeper conversations with people because your emotional resilience, your resilience overall has increased. It's leveled up. And so recovery is a game of leveling up over and over again. And sometimes it's not so noticeable. So with your question, Bertie, I also chatted about this a lot in the last week or so. But you also want to ask yourself, how are you measuring progress? If you feel like you're in a plateau, are you only measuring it by how much you can walk, or how much you can do physically, or how you feel? Or are you counting the cognitive wins? The fact that you're able to do more paperwork or read more, or your memory's better, or you don't slur your words as much, like I did right there, or if you're able to have deeper conversations with people, or you're better at dealing with your emotions and there's more emotional stability. These are all other areas we can sometimes miss looking at. You may not be expanding physically, but you could be expanding in other areas and building capacity in other areas. I always kept it super simple. The only indicator for me that I was getting better was my response to symptoms. As long as my response to symptoms was improving, I saw that as a sign of getting better and better in recovery. That's how I measured my progress. Because at the end of the day, at least in my experience and from my point of view, that is the number one thing that's the big domino that if you get that right, everything else falls into place is how are you responding to symptoms? And this could lead to another point because symptoms aren't always physical. I saw overthinking as a symptom. I'll repeat that. I saw overthinking as a symptom because when I was flaring up, I noticed that my thoughts would just be all over the place. I'd get a lot of intrusive thoughts. And the way my doctor described it to me, he said, when you're in these flare-ups, your body goes into survival mode, essentially. That's the whole reason you have these flare-ups, Miguel. Your body is trying to protect you from exposing yourself to any other stimulus or any more stimulus. So he taught me a lot of stuff, and he said, when you're flaring up, it's like your brain is on this hyperactive mode looking for danger. It's like your brain has a magnifying glass for anything that could potentially be a threat. So he gave me this analogy. He said, let's say there's a spider on the table and it's like this small, it's tiny. Let's say it's the size of a penny. It's not that scary, right? But what if you had a big magnifying glass and that magnifying glass just increased the size of that spider, not the actual spider, but your perception of the spider? Does that make sense? So he drew out on this whiteboard this small spider over here and this huge spider on the other side that was being seen through a magnifying glass. And he said, you see this? You see the difference? The spider didn't change, but your perception of the spider changed. That's what's happening with your brain when you are in a flare-up. It's going to feel a palpitation. It's going to think you're having a heart attack. It's going to feel throbbing in your head. You're going to think you're having a stroke or something. Every small thing is going to be amplified, not just the physical things, but even the thoughts. So my mind would race a lot during these flare-ups. So I really just packaged it in there with that. I call it an adjustment period. So an adjustment period is essentially your body. It's a period of adjusting to the new level of stimulus that has been placed on your body. That's all. At some point, you're going to have to adjust back into life. So you're going to go through an adjustment period. You don't just go from bedridden or housebound to being able to go to the gym 5 times a week. That doesn't happen overnight. There is a window of time, a period where you are adjusting to it. And with that adjustment period comes with it some symptoms, some flare-ups, some times where you do have to pull back. And you really want to make sure you're taking the stress off of the nervous system. And most people don't realize that your emotions play a huge role in the stimulus that you feel in your body. So really keep that in mind. It's not just measuring things in the physical sense. It's also cognitive and emotional. So that was a really long, deep answer to your question, Bertie, but does that help if you're still here? And if there's any other questions, feel free to pop them in the comments. We'd be happy to answer them and give you guys some golden nuggets today. Does that help, Bertie? And I know I just threw a lot at you guys. It's a lot of information, so definitely watch this one back if needed. That's a great thing about technology. Shelly, I'm curious about other symptoms developing. For example, now I have lots. Thyroiditis. If I focus on the nervous system, is that the most bang for my buck? Yeah, it's a great question. So as long as you have had your tests and scans done by doctors and they've tried different treatments and nothing is working, and you're at the point where their hands are tied, they don't know what else to do, and they're just treating the symptoms, not really getting to the root cause and experimenting different stuff on you, then I would say it's very worthwhile to focus on the nervous system. I've seen a lot of people, as in thousands, personally worked with hundreds of people who did have other things going on, like actual adrenal fatigue, like actual thyroid issues, Hashimoto's, actual mast cell activation syndrome, diagnosed, and biomarkers, everything is coming up. The thing is, they weren't really given a long-term solution. It's more, oh, you're dealing with that symptom? Take this. Oh, you're dealing with POTS? Here, take some beta blockers. Oh, you're dealing with food sensitivities? Take these allergy medications. So it's not really getting to the root cause. And I really started to look at symptoms another way. After doing all this research and talking to my doctor and going through this myself, I realized symptoms are feedback from your body. It's like your body's trying to tell you something. It's if you were to get sick, let's say a kid gets sick, right? He has the flu. His nose starts running. He starts sweating. His body starts heating up. The reason it does those things, well, part of the reason is it's trying to expel any toxins out of his body. So runny nose, is it really a bad thing? When the kid's sweating and he has a fever, is that a bad thing? Or is his body trying to protect him? What would happen if you give him something to stop the runny nose and to stop his body from heating up? His body is trying to do what it's naturally designed to do, which is protect him, which is try to get rid of that virus or cold or bacteria, right? So it's really feedback from the body. It's actually, I would say it's a sign of health. And so when we have these POTS and these palpitations and all these other things going on, and you've ruled out anything that could be causing this, your body is trying to tell you something. And if we were to just take medication, and by the way, I'm not completely against medication. There's definitely a time and place for it. I think it's great in certain instances. But if we're just taking medication and trying to quiet down the symptoms, it's like telling your body to be quiet when it's trying to tell you something. And so if the medications and the supplements and the treatments haven't worked, it's probably a deeper issue that you need to look into. And a lot of times, even with these diagnosed Hashimoto's, adrenal fatigue, mast cell activation syndrome stuff, long COVID diagnosed cases, they implement this focus on the nervous system, and those diagnoses go away. Even things that shouldn't have gone away. It's crazy because the root cause of that was a hypersensitive nervous system, sending the wrong signals to certain parts of your body, and in turn, your body was not really doing the right stuff, right? Or attacking itself. So yeah, I think it would be a good idea if you have done your due diligence to focus on the nervous system. Yeah, the best bang for buck, the best ROI, return on investment for your energy and time and focus. That's what I would say. It's one of the biggest levers you can pull, and some pretty cool stuff can happen. So Shelly says, thanks for that response. That's my experience. Docs are trying to address each new symptom, and so many keep popping up lately. Yes, I say it's like a game of whack-a-mole. You ever go to the carnivals or arcade and these things pop up and you have to hit it with a hammer? And then you hit it, it disappears, another one pops up. You hit that, two more pop up. It's the same thing with symptoms. That's why I don't ever advise people to chase after individual symptoms. Assuming they've done their due diligence and they have already done that, you want to treat this thing as a whole. Just put everything under the umbrella of hypersensitive nervous system, because it's a never-ending goose chase. It's a never-ending game of whack-a-mole when you try to deal with individual symptoms. I've tried that. I'm sure you probably tried that, and it's very frustrating because it does take a lot of energy. Yeah. Docs are trying to address each new symptom. So many keep popping up lately, but so far none of the suggestions are addressing any root cause. Not making me feel better. It makes me feel like they're missing something, or that I can't trust my care, which leads me to a vicious cycle of new research, new doctors, paying out of pocket for new treatments, etc. Yes, you are going through what I describe as the gauntlet of testing, the gauntlet of solutions. It's like a gauntlet. Like you literally have to work your way through it. And the crazy thing is, usually that's what most people do, because of course you want to be safe and make sure there's nothing else going on. So you do have to go through this phase of it's a painful phase. It's a frustrating phase. It's pretty long. It's pretty intense. It's like going through the trenches, right? You're not really getting the answers you're looking for, but at least the good news with this is you've ruled out a lot of other very serious health issues if they're not finding anything, which the more they tell you they don't know what's going on, the more they don't find anything, the more confident you can be that's a hypersensitive nervous system issue. Bertie asks, my hobbies, the ones I really enjoy and help me stop thinking, are pretty intense. Martial arts, hiking, weightlifting. Is it still advisable to do them? I do get symptoms, but bounce back after a day or two. I would find other hobbies. I would keep these, but replace some of it with a much lower level of stimulation. I was the same way. My hobbies were working out, lifting heavy, doing wrestling, MMA, anything physical. Those are my hobbies. I could not sit still at all, right? So you do want to continue doing them, but I would dial it back a little bit and replace some portion of that activity with a lighter level stimulus. And it's like when you're driving a car, you can't just redline the engine all the time. You got to drive slower sometimes. You got to drive a medium speed, but you don't want to go full speed all the time. For you, I imagine it's, and I could be wrong, but most people who have CFS or long COVID get this. It's usually an all or nothing personality. It's usually an extreme activity or extreme sport, extreme stimulation, or doing nothing, just chilling at home, taking it super easy. But there is no in between. There is no, oh, let's go for a short stroll. There's no, let me play some music for just a little bit here and there. It's I'm playing for 2 to 3 hours straight, or I'm not playing at all. There is no middle ground. So you want to find that middle ground of activities. And this is your opportunity to experiment with different hobbies that, who knows, you may find something that you never would have tried before. And it turns out that you love it. So I would find a lighter activity to do. It doesn't mean stop doing the martial arts and hiking and weightlifting. I would still do that, but just replace some of the activity with other things. Thanks for the question. All right. Pernilla from Sweden, welcome to the call. What can I do to help my nervous system? Follow this group, watch as many of Raelan's videos as you can, and watch my videos as well. I have a lot of videos online, but educate yourself. Don't over-educate yourself because there is a deep rabbit hole of information, but watch as many of Raelan's videos as you can. That's what I would say. Shelley says, this is especially interesting to me because for about 6 to 12 months prior to getting really ill, I kept telling doctors that my nervous system was so heightened all the time. Felt like someone crept up behind me and crashed cymbals. No practitioner understood what I meant. All that to say, I'm glad to find this path because I think I knew it deep down way back then, but wasn't in a place to trust my gut. Yeah, I had the same feelings as well. That feeling like you're tiptoeing through a haunted house, waiting for the jump scare to happen. That's what that feeling is. It sounds like you were right at your tipping point for a while. And most people are, if you guys really think about it. This didn't just happen overnight. It didn't come out of nowhere for most people. If you look back, there were early signs of mild symptoms that were coming up. Maybe it was some insomnia. Maybe it was some jitteriness, some inability to relax. Maybe it was a couple of palpitations here and there, or you started having sleep paralysis or whatever. There usually is a lead up to this when you actually look back and start to connect the dots. This is from, at least in my opinion, and from what I've seen and from my experience, essentially we all have this threshold of how much stress our nervous system can handle. And stress comes in many forms, like we talked about earlier. Physical stress, emotional stress, and cognitive stress. Now, the perfect examples for this, I think physical is pretty obvious. That's if you're walking or running or jumping up and down. That's physical stress on your body. Cognitive stress is putting your brain to work, reading a book, looking at screens, listening to very intense podcasts, things like that. And then there's emotional stress. Usually emotional stress comes from people. That's where a lot of that comes from, whether it's relationships or friends or work scenarios, conflict. These are all stressors. Now, our bodies are actually very resilient, extremely resilient, more than we can ever imagine. But it does have its limits. If we were to take stressors from these different buckets, you create this perfect storm. So for me, it was working out 5 to 6 days a week, That's some stress. So let's say I have a bucket of stress here. I fill it up a little bit. Working out 5 to 6 days a week, then I'm not sleeping enough. That's more stress. Then I'm not eating right, extra stress. Then I'm drinking energy drinks, extra stress. Problems with relationships, extra stress. Financial worries, extra stress. Starting a new job, extra stress. And then let's just say one day I get sick. Someone coughs on me by accident and I happen to be walking by. Boom, get sick. Right there, that might be all that's needed to push me over that limit. And then now I'm getting symptoms. Now it has set off the alarm system in my body that, hey, we've reached our maximum threshold. We need to start shutting this party down now, because we've been showing symptoms for the longest times. We have been trying to tell this person to slow down. We've been putting up yellow light signs in the form of symptoms to try to get this person to slow down, but they're not listening. So now we are slamming on the brakes, red light. We're putting this body in survival mode. Let's give them symptoms to stop them from going to work, stop them from going out to see their friends, stop them from drinking these energy drinks. So when this person drinks an energy drink, let's have a severe reaction. When this person tries to go out and work again, let's have a severe reaction. When this person tries to go stand up and walk outside, wait a minute, he might be going to the gym to exercise. All right, let's stop him from walking. Let's take his legs out. So it will put these things in place. And to some people, if they're just looking at this at the surface level, they're going to look at that top part. Oh, I got sick. That thing caused me to feel all of these symptoms, but they didn't count all the other stressors below that, which is really what caused a lot of this. It wasn't really getting sick. It wasn't just one thing. It was that one thing was the final straw that broke the camel's back, which is, why do some people get long COVID and other people don't get long COVID? Why do some people get CFS and other people, you see them doing some crazy stuff with their bodies, but they don't get CFS, right? It's because their threshold isn't as full. It may be full physically. Physically, they're doing more stuff, but emotionally, they're not as stressed out. Cognitively, they're not as stressed out. This is why most people who get this, long COVID and CFS, fibromyalgia, they're type A personalities, perfectionists, overly analytical. Those are the things that can cause us to put a lot of stress on ourselves cognitively and emotionally. Just wanted to share that. Okay, another question here. Marcelina, I'm not typical ME/CFS because I'm Lyme disease patient with adrenal fatigue. It is hard for me to introduce all suggestions to ME/CFS because I need to guess if my symptoms is caused by low level of cortisol or it is this anxiety loop. Don't expect anything answered, just sharing. Yeah, sometimes it's a little tricky, especially something like Lyme disease. Now I'd be curious, to be diagnosed with Lyme disease, did they actually see something in your biomarkers, or are they just saying that you have Lyme disease? And I'm only asking because I've seen both scenarios where the doctors never heard about CFS or long COVID, but all the symptoms basically show that, and then they just give them the label of Lyme disease. But other times, yeah, they see in tests that there's something going on. Now, even with that, you can minimize the symptoms that you feel. I wouldn't say I don't have as much experience with Lyme. We've had several cases with Lyme, but I worked with several people with Lyme disease. But sometimes you have multiple issues going on, right? You have the Lyme disease, then on top of that, you have the adrenal fatigue, and on top of that, you have the CFS stuff. Now, one could argue that CFS and adrenal fatigue, they come as a package, but the CFS will essentially amplify any symptoms that you feel. So the CFS stuff is, on this hand, is making all the Lyme disease symptoms feel way more intense than they would feel, right? I think if you handle a lot of the CFS stuff, which is a hypersensitive nervous system, it's going to reduce the symptoms you have and probably give you some more energy because you won't be feeling the effects of the Lyme disease as much. That's what I think. I really struggle with dehydration. It really affects my crash. I'm curious why. Is it brain inflammation? I drink lemon water, minerals, vitamin C. Do you have any tips? Doesn't matter what I drink. I'm always thirsty. I even put salt in my water. I also have low blood pressure. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing you've seen doctors about this. Curious what they've said, because everything you're doing right now, those are the things I would recommend. Now, there was a time when I would drink probably 5 liters a day, but those were the times when I was bedridden. I couldn't do much. So I was just very bored to the extreme. So I was drinking water all day. So it gave me the perception that I was thirsty. I would add in vitamins and magnesium and salt, sea salt to my water and just chug it all day. So I got into the habit of always drinking water. And I was definitely over drinking water at that time. That was just my personal experience. In terms of you, yeah, it's honestly hard to say. If you're doing all of these things, I'm guessing you've had your blood tests and scans done, and they still can't find anything or any reason for this. Is that the case, Lindsay? If they have tested for it and they haven't found anything, I would treat it as a hypersensitive nervous system issue. Okay, okay. So they have checked everything out. Okay. If they have checked everything out, I would say it's a hypersensitive nervous system issue. And it could be that you've just gotten into the habit of always drinking water. Because I had the same thing going on. Because you always hear, oh, drink more water. It's healthy for you. It's good for you. But I was sitting in bed doing nothing. I was just basically drinking water and then peeing it out. Drinking water, peeing it out. The thing is, my body got so used to that habit, I couldn't go an hour and a half or 2 hours without drinking water. So you almost have to wean yourself off it. At least that's what I did. I was like, wait a minute. Then I started researching, right? Is it okay to drink this much water after like several months of doing this? And it's crazy because it said, no, if you drink too much water, it can actually give you, and it was showing me like palpitations, high heart rate, this and this, lightheadedness, dizziness, blurry vision. And I was like, wait, is all of this coming from my water? Am I just drinking too much water? Is that what's causing this? I mean, it definitely wasn't causing all of it, but it certainly didn't help. So I pulled back on the water and I actually started to feel better. So I'm not sure how much water you're drinking, but that might be the case. It might be the case, especially if you're trying all these things of drinking more and you have the vitamins going in it. It could just be like your brain has gotten into the habit of drinking lots of water. So yeah, I remember those days. My grandma would bring a huge pitcher in. This is my water bottle now. It's like the size of my head, but hers was maybe twice as big as this. And she would refill it probably 2 to 3 times a day, a full bottle, like this big, right? And I just chugged water all day. And I remember I would add these, it's called Ester C. It's these orange packs. My dad would get them for me. They're grape flavored, orange flavored, and there was like a lemon flavor. But I was so bored at home. I just kept drinking. And little did I know, that was probably giving me some symptoms actually. So yeah, I couldn't just stop the water cold turkey. You don't want to stop it at all. You just want to reduce it actually, if there's lots of water going on there. But yeah, I hope that helps, Lindsay. I'd look into that and try some of those things I said. How big of a problem is it with sugar and gluten? Should we not eat it at all? I'm new to ME. Yeah, so you're new to this hypersensitive nervous system stuff. Yeah, so with sugar and gluten, again, it's not really an optimal thing for your body, especially gluten. The more natural something is, usually the easier it is to digest. The more additives and chemicals and not natural things, the more your body has to work to break that down, right? This is why if you're dealing with CFS and you try eating a pizza with cheese and bread and sauces and all of that stuff, usually it's not going to be a good time because your body has to work so hard to process that, to break it down. And already you have limited energy and already you have a hypersensitive nervous system. So your nervous system's reaction to really any incoming stimulus is going to be over exaggerated. Whether that's the food you put in your stomach, the liquids you drink, even how bright the lights are, even the sounds, everything is amplified. So if something is slightly difficult or slightly more difficult for even a normal person to digest, well, give that to a CFS body, it's going to be even harder to digest. So I would say in the beginning, better to stay away from too much sugars and gluten and things like that. And you can still have some. I wouldn't cut it out cold turkey. You don't have to. If you really enjoy eating it, yeah, keep eating some of it. But I would stick mostly to whole foods. Plant-based stuff, natural is better. But I mean, you could still have a cookie here and there. You could still have a piece of chocolate. As long as it's not flaring you up so much, sometimes it is worth having that junk food. Like, it just gives you that sense of satisfaction. It's hard to get that when you're feeling symptomatic all the time. And yes, you could argue that it could make your symptoms worse, but is it worth it? Is that taste and that satisfaction worth having a few symptoms for the next 5 hours? So for me, I mean, when I was recovering and making tons and tons of progress, this is after I built a lot of momentum. I was eating cookies, chips, Cheetos, all of that stuff, and I still recovered. Just be smart about it. Don't go extreme with it. Don't completely cut it out, and don't go all out with it. Find that middle ground. Just dial it back a little bit. And then as you get better, as your capacity increases, you can start to have more and more of it. Miguel, I really struggle with head pressure, blurry vision, trouble focusing for 3.5 years after getting the vax. Only neurological things. This happens when I'm overdoing things and will last for weeks. How important is it to find a baseline and expand from there? I've been in the push and crash cycle for the entire period, and I think I need to slow down to get better. As long as every time you increase activity, then you have a flare and you have to pull back, as long as after that you're able to do actually a little bit more, I think you're okay. Now, I would also question, is it an actual crash? You say push and crash. Is it a increased activity and then have an adjustment period, or is it an actual crash? Because a crash that's very extreme. A crash is like you in the bed for days at a time, about to call 911. You can't roll over, spoon-fed, difficult to breathe. I would consider that a crash. And anything that's not that is an adjustment period. There can be pretty intense adjustment periods that can feel like crashes, but I would really look into my video or just search up on YouTube, adjustment period CFS, because there is a big difference between an adjustment period and a crash. You may be actually doing the right stuff if you are getting better every time you go through that cycle, if you do find that your capacity improves. Now, on the other hand, if you feel like you're getting stuck and you're not making progress and you're in a plateau and things have been the same for several months, then we probably want to slow down. We probably want to slow down on the amount of activity you're doing. And I think you said it in your comment, in your question, you're overdoing it and this will last for weeks. If you don't even know what your baseline is, it would be pretty useful to find that. Now, something to avoid when finding your baseline, don't set these hard rules of, oh, my baseline is I can only walk 10 minutes a day, or I can only walk for 1 hour a day, or I can only go out 3 times a week. But anything past that, it's going to be bad. A crash is coming. You don't want to set these hard boundaries for yourself. I don't even like to call it baseline anymore. We completely changed how we call it. And we've actually talked about this in the last 2 weeks inside our community, because we're working with a lot of people recovering from this. Instead of calling it your baseline, because a baseline is so specific, there's not much wiggle room. I think of like a line, and you have to be on that line. And if you go outside that line, then bad things happen. I would more so call it your optimal zone. It's a range of activity you want to be within. It's not a hard exact spot, but it's a range, it's a zone. So I would say, what is your optimal zone? Where do you get to the point where things are fairly manageable, that you can sustain it, right? That's where you want to spend a lot of your time. And you want to bounce between, okay, what's manageable and where or when are we getting to the point where it's starting to not be manageable? So you want to go between these these zones of what's manageable. Okay, it's getting a little bit harder, a little bit harder, a little bit harder. Okay, now it's starting to get unmanageable. You stay within this range. What you don't want to do is go to the extremes and be like, I'm going to keep going until I feel the symptoms and I have symptoms for several weeks. which that's probably what it sounds like you're doing. You just go and go until you start feeling the symptoms. And then that's when you slow down. You can make it so that those windows of flare-ups are less intense, right? But you want to find that optimal zone, right? So watch that video. I think that would really help. Adjustment periods, CFS, just search it up on YouTube and it should pop up and should say CFS recovery. All right, Jennifer asks, how can I help calm my nervous system? I listen to relaxation meditation. I take very small walks in nature, but I still overreact to stimuli. I can't talk to my family for more than a few words without having symptoms. Yeah, it's a great question. There are so many things you could do to help calm your nervous system. Really, anything that elicits a feeling of safety and comfort. Comfort is a very important thing to note here. Now, with relaxation and meditation, when you're listening to those things, think about what the goal of that is. What is the goal of meditation? The goal of meditation is to get you to a state where you're relaxed, where you are feeling comfortable, where you're at a state of kind of peace, no worry, and a feeling of safety. That's the goal of meditation. So I would say meditation is like the vehicle to get you to a certain destination, which is safety and comfort. Now, there are so many ways we can get here, right? And some ways that you may not even think of, doing hobbies, right? Some people really don't like meditation, right? Most people I talk to, they don't really like the idea of having to sit there and close their eyes and shutting their mind off for several minutes at a time. They can't do it. I know I can't do it. It's very difficult for me. Actually, that would stress me out even more than if I were to do something else. What I tell them is, in order to arrive at that destination of safety and comfort and just good feelings, we can do other things to get you there. We can use other vehicles, whether that's even listening to a podcast, even drawing or even journaling, playing an instrument, sewing, crocheting, photography, videography, photo editing, graphic design, learning new skills. These are things that allow your brain to stay calm, because when it's occupied doing things that you enjoy, it doesn't have space or room to focus on things that stresses it out, if that makes sense. It can't multitask that much, right? So let's go even deeper. What we're trying to do here is create a reference point for your brain to work towards. Because when we have a hypersensitive nervous system, essentially, it's like your brain forgets what it even feels like to feel relaxed or to feel safe. So when we're doing these things that bring us joy and bring us that sense of safety, you're waking up those areas. So your brain goes, oh, that's what that feels like. That's what it feels like to be safe. That's what it feels like to have comfort. Okay, so now we have a reference point that we can work towards, because the less your brain knows what that is, it doesn't know what it's working towards. It's just very confused. It's just going to go in circles and circles. We create that reference point to work towards. And I mean, I can go even deeper on this topic. I could bring out diagrams and everything, but maybe I'll save that for another live Q&A. But anything that can help you feel calm and safe, that's what I would really focus on. And a lot of this is finding out hobbies, discovering new hobbies, different things to keep your mind occupied, but most importantly, that you enjoy, to create that reference point. So that's what I would do, Jennifer. I hope that helps. Okay, Shelly, what do you recommend as a good place to start for a path to recovery for ME and CFS? Right now, I'm piecing all these snippets together I come across. It's overwhelming, and I would love something a little more laid out for me so I can put my energy into the recovery process rather than the gathering. Yeah, I mean, we have a free Recovery Foundations masterclass. I think Raelan has one as well that is a little bit more specific on what you need to do. So I would go check that out. Go through something a little more structured. A lot of people, they first find Raelan or myself just by researching, and they want answers to questions. But at some point, you get past that information gathering phase. You got all these tools to work with, but now you're like, okay, what do I do with these tools? Is there some kind of system or a step-by-step plan where I can use these tools or even know what tools to use? And so that's where something like a recovery system can really help. And I believe Raelan has some kind of recovery masterclass. We have a free one as well. So it's probably going to be, yeah, you'll see it on the CFS Recovery channel, or probably in the description below or in the comments below. Yeah, you just want something where you have the roadmap and it's just, boom, I do this and this, versus having to piece it together. So if you go into a room full of Lego and there's hundreds of pieces and someone goes, okay, go build this thing, and you got no specific instructions, but all these pieces you don't know what to do with, these different recovery systems or programs, whatever you want to call it, those are like basically instructions on what to do with all those pieces. And there's so many variations of what you could do. You want to find something that resonates with you and that works for your style. But if you resonate with the stuff in this page and on Raelan's channel, I would dive deeper into that. All right. Sydney Clevenger. Nice to see you, Cindy. There's Sydney. Is there a way I can predict a crash? Okay, so right off the bat here, no. Do not ever predict a crash. Actually, even thinking about that will lead to a crash. I need to sneeze. Yeah, you don't ever want to predict a crash because you're already anticipating that it's going to happen. If you anticipate it, it's going to happen. Anytime I slowly build after severe crashes, it happens again. There's times where I do more and don't crash, and there's times where I feel I do less and I crash. It's becoming impossible for me to predict. My crashes are bad. Really can't move or eat and feel I should be in the hospital. Yeah, that sounds pretty intense. Okay, so I see where the question is coming from. In this stage, it depends as well. For you specifically, we chatted a few weeks ago, and I know you're in that, I think we called it the orange phase in the polyvagal triangle. So you are wired to the gills. There's so much adrenaline going through your body. There's so much extra energy your body doesn't know what to do with. And then when you do the smallest thing, it can just trigger this whole cascade of adrenaline dump in your body and like an extreme reaction. So basically, now I know your situation more than most people on here because we had a chat, but you need to find ways to burn off that extra adrenaline going through your body for your specific phase, right? And we need to find a way to burn it off without overstimulating the body. Now, there are different things that could be keeping you stimulated right now. You could be going on Google, searching this stuff up. If you're spending too much time on the phone, it could be overstimulating, especially in this phase. If you're seeing a lot of negativity around CFS, that could keep your nervous system elevated. So we need to figure out a way. We don't need to pull back more, I think, because if we pull back from this stage, your capacity will drop and drop. And that's how people end up, in that red stage where they're completely bedridden. So we do have to build capacity in some way. But right now, I'd really try to figure out, where is the energy leakage? Where is the stress coming in from? Once you pinpoint that, you're going to have more capacity to do other things and build without having that severe reaction. But that's what I would do in your situation. In terms of predicting a crash, that's not really going to solve the problem. In fact, it'll probably make it worse. So yeah, I would dive into these videos, try to implement as much as you can, but we need to find out where these energy leaks are coming from and what's keeping you stimulated. And I know we had a chat about this 3 weeks ago. So I would keep coming to these calls, keep learning about it. My best advice would be to not predict the crash, right? Find those energy leaks, identify what those are, and then find things that you can do. It doesn't even have to be physical. It could be mental, to take your mind off of all the symptoms. And there's going to be a lot of symptoms right now. And then it's a matter of learning to handle the symptoms better, or handle the symptoms better than you are right now. Because we always want to be working towards handling symptoms better. Because the better you respond to symptoms, the less of that cycle, that crash cycle, you become stuck in. So that's what I would say. But I would need to know more about your situation to give you more of a clear plan. But that is an hour, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys got lots of value out of this one. This was lots of fun. Went really deep into some topics. And I'll be doing one of these again in a handful of weeks here. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And go take some of these recovery principles and recovery golden nuggets and go implement them. And as you implement them over time, you should start feeling some changes in your body, physically, mentally, emotionally, and you'll start to really unlock that thriving health. So take it easy, guys. Keep on going and keep on implementing this stuff. You got this. You're going to recover. And I'll see you next time. Cheers, guys.
Miguel is in my Facebook group once a month doing these completely free live Q&A calls for members. So if you're not already a part of the group and you'd like to join, you can find the link to do so in this video's description. And if you found this video helpful, I'll link for you here on the screen an information-packed interview I did with Miguel a while back where he shares a lot of additional really great information about recovery. So these are strategies that are being used today by hundreds of people in Miguel's CFS recovery program. His program has different options ranging from lower cost options that are more self-directed all the way to full service program options with daily coaching calls and all sorts of hands-on support. So check out the links in this video description to learn more. And I hope you'll join me in this next amazing interview with Miguel.